Hi, Peter Charles here, Hooked for Life Fly Fishing. And today, let's take a look at the types of materials we use to create the bodies for our flies. On the vise, I have got a small beadhead hare's ear. It's a nymph, and it has a dubbed body. And I'll show you what we're using for dubbing. Now, this is a pack of my own stuff here. And you buy it in these little packs. And I created this dispenser. And this is all rabbit fur, and it's all dyed different colors. And so when you tie it on a hook, you get that kind of spiky, buggy looking appearance. And this stuff absorbs water. It tends to change color too when it absorbs water. And you wind it on the hook. So you wrap it around the thread first, and we wind it on the hook afterwards. So it fills in quite nicely, and then you can see I've got a gold wire in here as well, just to add a little bit of flash and to keep everything together. So when we dub a body, what we're doing is simply layering on some of this material. We're winding, we wrap it on the thread, and then we wind. It works out quite simply. And there's a variety of materials that are available. This isn't a pack that you can actually buy. This is artificial. This is called SLF, and artificial tends not to change color when it gets wet. So that's the real distinction between using a natural material like rabbit and using an artificial material like this SLF, is the artificials tend to keep their color when wet, and the rabbit fur tends to get darker. Okay, here's a different fly. It's done with SLF. This is an artificial material. That's a lot bigger fly. It's a steelhead fly. And you can see how that was wrapped on the hook and created the body. Now, these are very effective materials. They give a very buggy appearance, and you can see they're not smooth. However, you can get smooth results if you want. Okay, here we have our March Brown. It's a dubbed body, but it's pretty smooth. And so you can get a relatively smooth result if you want, just taking your time and being very careful with the wrapping. But generally, the idea behind dubbing is to get that buggy, spiky appearance. And when we're not looking for that, we can use the materials we talked about in another video where we're dealing with flosses and wools and other similar types of material, tinsels, that we use to create our bodies with. However, with this, if we're looking for that buggy appearance, we're going to be looking at some sort of dubbing. Now, some of the other types of dubbing you can get is this sparkle dubbing. It's got a bit of a flash in it that's built right into the dubbing, so it adds a little bit of flash to the bug when you're tying it. So there are quite a variety of materials out there that you can use to create dub bodies. So I thought it would be a good idea if I showed you how to dub a body very quickly, very simply. I'm not going to do an elegant job, but just to show you what it looks like and give an idea what's involved. Okay, we start our thread. Now I'm going to use my rabbit dubbing. And we always take just a little bit at a time. Never take a big clump because it becomes difficult to work with. So I've got a small clump here, and I'll just wind that on. So I've created what's called a rope, dubbing rope. And I'm just going to use my rotary vise to do this quickly. There you go. As you can see, it was fairly straightforward. You just get a small amount on the thread, just wind it onto the thread, and then you can wind it on your hook, and you end up with this nice looking buggy body. You know, it's, as you can see, it's fairly straightforward to do, and it produces a very interesting looking body. It produces a very natural looking body because you have all these variations in the color. You don't have that one uniform color that you do with artificial material, artificial dubbing. So this natural dubbing, you get those natural variations in the color. Next one we're going to look at is Peacock Herl. And this is taken from the tail feathers of the peacock. And we wrap that on the body, and you can see you get this iridescent look to it. It's very, very nice. It is a bit fragile to use. There are ways of making it more robust, but it gives you a wonderful appearance. And this fly's been fished a bit, so it's a bit ragged. Now, another body material you can use is actually the barbs from a pheasant tail. And these barbs, in this case, I think I've got 2 wrapped on this body. I've used the barbs to actually create the body and the tail at the same time. So we've just wrapped the barbs onto the shank of the hook. and created a body out of it. Again, a very buggy looking fly, but very good when you want a thin body, because when you're looking at different kinds of nymphs, swimming nymphs like this one have very thin bodies. When we're looking at crawler nymphs or burrowing nymphs, they have very fat bodies. So that would determine what kind of material you're going to be using, whether you want a thick look or a thin look. Now the fly I've got on the vise here is a steelhead fly, and I've used something called chenille on here. Now this is a particular kind of chenille. It's called ice chenille, and it's quite shiny. You can get all sorts of different colors: olive, black, orange. Very, very shiny appearance. It creates a lot of flash in the water, and the fish are attracted to the flash. Very good for steelhead and similar type flies for salmon and what have you. Also, there's another kind of chenille, which is more of what we think of when we think of chenille. If we go to buy it to a craft shop and buy some chenille, this is basically what we're getting. It's this fluffy stuff. And if you've ever tied a woolly bugger, that's what you used on the body. It's very, very simple to use. It's a very quick and easy way to get a very buggy looking body. And in a subsequent video, that's one of the materials we're going to be using when we create the fly. Now, one of the materials you wouldn't think of using for creating bodies is deer hair. But here we've got a deer hair fly. This is elk hair in this hand, and this is deer hair. And you basically wind it on the hook, and you stack it, you shove it in there, you pack it hard, and then you trim it out. So this little grasshopper pattern has a head made out of deer hair. You'll have to forgive the appearance of this one. This one's caught a lot of fish, so it's getting kind of beat up, but you get the idea. By using deer hair or elk hair, we can create bodies, heads to a fly, or we can make the entire body out of this. This stuff is hollow, so it facilitates the fly floating, which is quite handy. So you make a fly out of deer hair, you get a fly that floats. Now, this is not an exhaustive list of all the materials we can use to create bodies. There are more materials out there, but this is a quick list. You've got dubbing, you've got chenilles, you've got actual feathers you can use, the barbs from feathers. We can use deer hair. There are a variety of materials that you can use to create a body, depending on what you're after. So there you go. Body materials for our flies. Fairly straightforward. The easy stuff to use is chenille. If you want easy bodies, go with that. Or, you can go back to my previous video and look at wools and tinsels and flosses. They're not hard to use either. When we get into things like this pheasant tail or the Peacock Herl, they're a little bit more delicate to use, a little bit more fussy, but they go on pretty well. And you can also, as I say, get into the artificial colors, especially when you're looking at things like steelhead and salmon flies. So there we go. How to make your bodies for your flies. Cheers.